Today you're going to be revising for Power and Conflict Poetry, AQA GCSE English Literature, and we're going to be having a look at Poppies by Jane Weir. So here's the poem. We're going to start with having a look at this. It's from a mother's perspective. Her son has gone to war and hasn't returned. He's died in battle, and this poem is her voice. It's her internal monologue. She's speaking to her son about her feelings. She can't really seem to separate the memories of his childhood with his death and her pain. And it's a really powerful, moving poem, which I'll share with you now. Poppies by Jane Weir. 3 days before Armistice Sunday, and poppies had already been placed on individual war graves. Before you left, I pinned one onto your lapel, crimped petals, spasms of paper red, disrupting a blockade of yellow bias binding around your blazer. Sellotape bandaged around my hand, I rounded up as many white cat hairs as I could, smoothed down your shirt's upturned collar, steeled the softening of my face. I wanted to graze my nose across the tip of your nose, play at being Eskimos like we did when you were little. I resisted the impulse to run my fingers through the gel black thorns of your hair. All my words flattened, rolled, turned into felt, slowly melting. I was brave as I walked with you to the front door, threw it open, the world overflowing like a treasure chest. A split second and you were away, intoxicated. After you'd gone, I went into your bedroom, released a songbird from its cage. Later, a single dove flew from the pear tree, and this is where it's led me, skirting the churchyard walls, my stomach busy doing tucks, darts, pleats, hatless, without a winter coat or reinforcement of scarf, gloves. I'm reaching the top of the hill. I traced the inscriptions on the war memorial, leaned against it like a wishbone. The dove pulled freely against the sky, an ornamental stitch. I listened, hoping to hear your playground voice catching on the wind. So that's Poppies. And it ends with her wishing that she could have his life back and live it with him all over again, longing to hear his infant voice. So it's a really sad, moving poem about how war can, destroy people's lives, and this mother's life is changed forever by the loss of her son. So, keeping it really simple now for the exam, because it's a wonderful poem, and I hope you've enjoyed studying it, but we need to think carefully about just what it is that we need to know for the exam in simple terms. When you write your response, one of those poems is named and it's in front of you. That's the named poem, and you have to choose a poem to compare it to. Now open your response with a quick paragraph that just shows you know what the two poems are about. So ultimately, Poppies is about a mother whose son has gone to war and died, and it's about how she feels. You need to be able to just explain that in your first paragraph. So when I say be concise, keep it simple. Don't need to know about the story and the narrative structure of the poem, just need to show that you know what it's about. Here's an example of that taken a little bit further. It's a model response that I'll share with you quickly. This is my introduction. Poppies is a poem from a mother's perspective. Her son's died in battle and her thoughts and memories of him have become intertwined with thoughts of his death. The poem is her internal dialogue, that's her inner voice. She speaks directly to her son in the poem and shares her pain. So that's what I need to do for both poems as my opening paragraph. The second thing I need to do is talk about the structure of the poem. So I've started with my opening paragraph, I've explained what the two poems are about. The next thing I'm going to do, quick paragraph where I explain what the structure is. So here's an example of that. Poppies doesn't adopt a regular metre or rhyme scheme. It's written in blank verse and used in enjambment, which is where the lines run into the next stanza. So this could be to reflect the confused thoughts of the speaker, this mother, and gives the poem a powerful tone reflecting her internal dialogue. It's like her inner voice. So that's what you need to do. And when it comes to unseen poetry, you're doing the same thing. You're thinking, what is the structure of the poem? What can I say? And make some sort of clever link to the theme in the poem, and why might that have been chosen? What writers do is make choices. So your job is to think about why that choice might have been made. So you may have underlined and annotated every line in the poem. You might have thought carefully about what yellow bias and blockades and spasms might reflect, and looked at every single word in the poem. Ultimately, you need to know and be ready to comment on 3 or 4 comments with quotes with confidence. So here's an example of my choice of 4. You can see them there in yellow. Those are my 4 key quotes that I'm learning and knowing for Poppies. And I've given you on this flashcard some analysis of that, and you've also got some comments on the form and structure and the themes of the poem here. So we'll start top left. We've got without winter coat or reinforcements of scarf, gloves. And she's just talking about her everyday life here, but she's using that word reinforcements. And it's something that we associate with battle. It's got allusions of battle to it. So her language, when she's talking about her everyday life and her memories of her son, she's bringing in language that refers to battle. So it's almost like she can't disassociate the memories of her son with his death. So every thought the speaker now seems to have, no matter how trivial, is permeated by thoughts of war. And that's the quote I'm knowing, and that's my analysis of it. We've got leaned against it like a wishbone when she talks about the war, leaning against the war memorial. We've got this wonderful simile here. And wishbones, they allude to childhood and vulnerability. They're fragile. So we've got a really interesting simile here that communicates a couple of different things that show us a little bit about the speaker's mindset. My favourite part of the poem, the end is powerful, and you could well be looking at that and wanting to analyse that. But I like the fact that we've got this assonance here. Assonance where you match up vowel sounds. So if you think about alliteration, we all know what that is. Assonance is where you take the vowel sounds and you pair those with other vowel sounds close by. So if I said I'd drop the pound on the ground and it made a sound, it's not alliteration, but it's an assonance. It's the ow sound is being used there. Here we've got this O sound. We've got that long O sound. We've got I wanted to graze my nose against the tip of your nose, play it being Eskimos. And this moment here is it's her longing for his childhood back, but the assonance creates a bit of pace here that could be to reflect just how quickly time's passed, and how his childhood has come and gone so quickly. Because this poem is ultimately about her thinking about her son and seeing that child, and her memories are of that. And a wonderful metaphor that we've got here that we can comment on, released a songbird from its cage. This metaphor suggests that the moment her son left, she broke down. And the idea of this cage shows that she's had to keep all these feelings and all this pain to herself. She didn't want him to go to war. And this really reflects, how destructive those feelings were to her. So I'll end there with thinking about the assessment objectives. You've got them there. Have a look at AO1, AO2, AO3. And we've also got the levels here. You can see those there for your reference. Feel free to pause or screenshot any of these, the model responses, the flashcard, and if you need to, the assessment objectives, and revisit this. Have a look over the poem, think about those key moments, and make sure that you know those confidently and what to say about them. And you'll be ready for Poppies, if that is the named poem, when it comes to paper 2 of English literature, GCSE for AQA. Thank you for joining me.